We did that stay behind ambush that one night. I think I told you about that.
I don't think so.
Okay, so about our second op we had in Vietnam, thought, we're going to go in and hit this one area here, and if nobody's in the little village or anything like that, then we're going to do a stay behind ambush. And so a squad of us went in and patrolled through some Willie Peter and the hooches and shit like that, and just kind of caused hate and discontent. And then the sun started going down. So as soon as it started going down, we got in an L-shaped ambush, being where rice paddies were going this way, that way, and stuff. And then we had the other choppers came in like they were going to pick us up. We had our other squad on it. They got off the chopper, ran around it, and got back in it like we were being extracted, right? So we sat there for about 45 minutes, almost an hour. And all of a sudden hear these guys come walking down this rice stack with AK-47s and shit and stuff. And we opened up on them and, blew them off the rice dike and shit. And then they opened up on us from the tree line, hit them a little bit. The Seawolves came in, did some damage and shit. And then the fucking chopper came in. There was only one of them, so we all couldn't get on it. We landed with two choppers, So me and another guy, a radioman and a stoner guy, myself, stayed there while that chopper went. Dongtown wasn't too far away. Come back and picked us up, and my pooper was a little tight on that and stuff.
How long were you sitting on the ground?
Oh, about another 20 minutes, 30 minutes
That'd be
before they came
lonely.
and got us. But nobody came into the village after that because we'd hammered them, pretty bad. So. And that was pretty good, but that was a brilliant op. Anyway, so I'm shooting my 60. He's over here shooting his 40 Mike, and there's a small stream between us. And we got back. We're drinking beers, patting poopers, telling tall tales and shit. And he says, God damn, didn't you see that fucking string of rounds that went right by you on that stream? And I says, no, because I was shooting my 60,
Yeah.
It was pretty neat, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
We had some good times over there.
Yeah, that's an amazing deployment to do all that
that was
damage.
a stay behind ambush classic, pure. I mean, just the way you want to do it. They knew we were there. They thought we had left. They came in, and we got the son of bitches.
Yeah.
And then they always say, did you shoot a guy yourself? Well, when you open up with stoners in 60s and you see guys flying off of rice stacks and shit, you're not sure if it's your 60 that hit him or if it's a stoner or whatever,
Yeah.
So it's only one time I know I hit a guy. For a fact is that when we came off the choppers and did that OK Corral thing.
Oh yeah.
Well, then me and another guy went around before the squad continued moving by. We wanted to check out the back, So he and I goes walking around, and he had a car. He was our corpsman, and I saw him walk around the edge and fire about 3 times. And I stepped by, he missed the guy, and here's this guy with an AK-47 right about here, and I stepped around with my 60 pointing right at him, and I just flipped him.
Yeah, that's
and then we joined
day.
up and kept going, and then 3 guys popped up out of the rice dike, and they started shooting at us, and we were shooting back, but a Seawolf was coming right over us, and 3 rounds went right through the instrument panel on the Seawolf. Didn't hit anybody. They turned like this, and the guy had a minigun and just went, oh, and we just dropped down because there was fucking rounds going everywhere.
Yeah, that's the amount of firefights you guys are getting in to take no casualties.
Yeah, we didn't.
That's amazing.
No.
That's amazing. That's incredible.
And we didn't have a lot of pictures either because we didn't have a professional photographer walking around with us.
Yeah. I mean, it's we missed, I would say in Ramadi, we missed the real, like a couple deployments later, maybe a year later, when guys were going on deployments, they had pictures of everything because they had helmet cams and they had all this stuff, and we didn't. And as a matter of fact, at that time there was like rules against taking pictures, so we don't have a bunch of pictures.
Yeah, we did.
Either.
We never. In both platoons I was in, we took one just before we deployed. The whole platoon, and then hardly nothing else after that. We wouldn't let photographers close to us. We wouldn't let news people even come close. We were on a Vietnamese base anyway. They couldn't get on it. It was perfect. And we just went out and did our thing and had a good time and didn't beat no drums about it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It was good. There was a couple platoons that had a photographer with them that took a lot of pictures and shit. And you've probably seen them and stuff. And, we didn't.
Yeah, and there's platoons. Well, in Iraq, there was platoons that got in trouble, and that's one of the reasons why we didn't take pictures, because there was platoons that had pictures that got exposed and got released, and they were pictures they shouldn't have taken, and they got in trouble, and not just that they got in trouble, but it was bad press for America, and that's why there was rules. It was like, hey, no pictures. So we don't have a lot of pictures of when we were in Ramadi.
You can do 100 things right, and you do one thing wrong, and that's what's going to pop up.
Yeah, and you do one thing wrong, and you take a picture of it.
Yep.
And these days, that picture's going around the world in 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So it's that's one thing that has definitely changed. And like I said, when we were in Ramadi, we were just on the I don't think people were really on social media yet. That not everybody had a camera, and not everybody had a video cam. These guys got video cameras now. They got helmet cams. They got all this stuff.
Yeah.
And some of it's good, some of it's beneficial. I mean, you're not going to get any better intel. There was a company commander from the 1st of the 506 who was one of the best guys I've ever worked with, but he videotaped every time he went out on patrol in a Humvee or not in a Humvee, however he was going on patrol, he filmed the whole thing. And he was working in one specific district of Ramadi called the Mulab district, and he would come back and watch those videos. And he would and I sat there and watched him with him one time, and he goes, yeah, you see this garbage can over here? Yeah, this one's a good landmark because it's a different color. And then up on this street corner right here, this pole is always filled with so many wires. It always scares me, because there's so many wires hanging off it. And he just had the whole city memorized because he had a camera rolling in his Humvee the whole time. And for that reason, plus when you gather intel, you're going into a building and you got pictures of everything. You got, if anyone ever goes in that building, here you go.
Yeah.
Well, here's what it's laid out. So there's some definite benefits to it, but yeah, there's some real drawbacks as well. If for people can use that stuff for propaganda against you, or if you're videotaping things or you're recording things that are going to make the Americans look bad, and now you're saying, okay, you did this. Well, here's what was happening in the situation. Here's why this happened, and here's the context. Well, the context isn't going to make it onto YouTube. The only thing that's going to make it onto YouTube is the thing that makes America look bad, and that's what's going to. So guys,
and that's what the reporters are going to key on, regardless of anything.
Yep.
See, we had barn dance files. Did I tell you about that?
You did mention them.
Yeah, barn dance files were this. Every time you went on an op, and you came back. The guy I was telling you was our intel guy, our first class, and he'd fill out these barn dance cards.
Why'd they call them barn dance? Is that just a pro word for them or whatever?
Pro word. Yeah. But if they had the who, where, what, and whys, equipment, anything we found out there, what firefights we got into, what what the enemy were using, anything that would be good intel. And it was just a 4x5 card, but it was really good. Yeah. And every platoon, like the platoon we relieved, already had theirs. So if we were going back into a specific area that went into, we had it organized. Nice. We'd look it up, pull it up, read and see what they hit and what they got and all that stuff. And that would help us out when we were going on and when we did our briefs and stuff. And we'd do the same thing. But every platoon would have these barn dance files of what they did and the areas they went into and stuff. And it was pretty good. That's how we did it. We didn't do the cam recorder like you're saying, but anything that we saw that would be of interest of another patrol or another platoon going into that area, then we'd let them know, through the barn dance files. Yeah. And then, like you said, when we got to Dongtam, the Vinlong province, what they did is split us up into provinces or districts in that province. And then we would go out with our Kit Carson scouts or interpreter and gather intel from the PSB guys, the chiefs, or from the SF that were out in the field, indoor rangers that were doing fire bases and stuff like that, and bring that back, and then we would put it up on our SIP map and start working. We had this one, we knew through our province that this one VCI, which is your high-level guy, they wouldn't transmit communication-wise. They would bring your orders in packets, you know what I'm saying? And he would come through the province maybe once a month,
with
or once every 3 weeks.
all the different information that was to be distributed.
And he would hand it to the VC what they wanted him to hit and stuff, but he had all this stuff. We knew he came through there every time, but there were 3 different trails that he used because we'd gotten intel. We didn't know which one it was, So we went out on the one trail, did an ambush, waxing people and shit like that. So we knew the next time he came, he wasn't going to do that trail. And then we did the same thing on the other trail, right? Yeah. So we figured he's going to come down this trail. So we set up on him.
Got him?
He came down that trail and we got him, got some good intel.
That's beautiful.
but that was just working with actionable intel, trying to figure it out and working it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
worked out real good.
Were you on that op? I always heard about this op where they wanted to get this one VCI, and they ended up hitting like his family or some member of his family, and then when they went to when they had the funeral, they went and got the guy that they were
No,
going
I
after.
wasn't on that one. There's a lot of things that happened, and like you say, when you're in your platoon, that's kind of your world and that stuff. And I've heard of. I don't remember hearing about that, but I probably was one time in the Trade Winds, the bar we used to drink at in Coronado or something. I'm sure that was brought up. And like guys used to hit tax collectors and get their piastra from them, their money. And then they would turn that into MPC and stuff, just different things.
Guys were
good
getting
hitting the tax
creative.
collector because that's a good thing. You know.
I support the tax collector for sure.
And if he had a whole bag full of money, well, oh well,
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's and it's all another thing that people. It's all self-generated. So much of it is self-generated. Like what you're talking about is the same thing for us. I mean, I had an intel group, but my intel group was SEALs, some intel SEALs, and some intel guys, and they created all of our intel, and our guys fed into it, and so we produced our own targets, kind of like what you're saying.
Yeah.
People have this thought that that the assault force is sitting there waiting for some command to come down and go hit this target, but the reality is we're making up the targets. We're figuring them out ourselves most of the time.
Yeah, well, I can see the difference from my first platoon where we didn't have anything and my second platoon where we actually worked off of actionable intel that we got. It was like night and day. It's a whole different world. And just like we talked about before we started this, you got your find, you got your fix, and then you got your finish and exploitation.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But that we're the best in the world, I think, on DA stuff, the finish. But you can't do the finish if you don't have the find where you know what to go and hit. You know what I mean? And that's why a long time ago we started up that field craft and all that other stuff. But our PRU advisors, we had a training site up in Cuyamaca. We called SEAL Advanced Training, and it was for our PRU advisors because they would go over there by themselves or with one other American and have about 50 VC, whatever, that they were in charge of. And the PRUs actually were for when the CIA could collect intel, but they didn't have a method of going out and hitting it, reacting on it, doing the finish part of it. So that's when they started the PRU program.
Right. And that's it for what? Prevention
recon units,
right?
Is what they were called. PRUs. We call them PRUs. Like they say, if I throw out an acronym,
no, I'm just making sure that
because
everybody.
I'm just so used, Anyway, and they would pull select guys to go through this PRU training, and East Coast guys too, and then they would go over and work.
And you said they'd be in charge. You said VC, but you didn't mean that, right?
Ex-VC.
Ex-VC,
yeah,
got
not
it.
the guys that chew and stuff and decide they wanted to make money. You know what I mean? So mercenaries is what they were. And so they had that training up there.
Does Chuhoi mean does it mean turncoat? What is it?
Chuhoi is a guy that, you left the VC side or the MVA and went to the South Vietnamese side.
Do you know what Chuhoi actually means?
No, I don't. The actual noun of it, no.
Yeah. I think it's a
But it was, they had put him in this camp. And like when we went to Dong Tam, we went to that camp with our interpreter, but we just happened to have a special boat guy at the time, MST, we called him Mobile Support Team, not SBU, that spoke fluent Vietnamese. So we'd bring him with us when our interpreter didn't realize this guy could speak Vietnamese too. And then we'd start interrogating guys for our district that we're in. For myself or Vin Long where the guys were. And we would talk to them, interrogate them and stuff, and they sounded like they were good to go. Then we'd bring them in as Kit Carson scouts. And they would stay with us. We'd let them go and stuff, but anytime we had an op, they stayed with us until the op was done and stuff. You know what I mean? We just didn't let them go. But they turned out that they were great guys. And anyway, the PRU program was about 6 months long, and half of it was tradecraft, half of it was medical, because you had to have that when you're working out there. The medical, especially because you're on your own out there, and you got to be able to take care of yourself if you get hit. And, and then they would come over, but these guys would also, after they got done, would go into another platoon, and would be able to get that his everything he did. But we had about 6 guys, and was one of them that went to a special school like Camp Perry, but it wasn't Camp Perry. It was different. It was a shorter version, and they got that training, and they're the ones that were the cadre for that SAT. And like my first platoon in '69, my whole platoon went through most of that before we deployed over. So you get all that stuff. We didn't get the field craft portion of it, but they had some great, really good quick kill trails and stuff like that, and map and compass and everything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And we're lucky because a platoon every once in a while, if they didn't have guys going through, would be able to pick that up and go through it. Yeah. But that was superb training. I mean, really good.
Yeah, it all boils back to training all the time.
Yeah,
and that's one of the best things about the SEAL teams. Is
but they called it too advanced training. It was
hard.
SAT training. It was specifically for the prevention recon units that they sent the guys over to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So when you got back from that deployment to Vietnam, now, like I said, that was November platoon was the last full deployment to Vietnam, and you know the war's kind of over, but you stayed in the teams. Did you go right to BUDS? I mean, after that?
So I get these orders to the amphibious base, and I thought, what the shit? Because that's when the Dirty 30 was happening and all that stuff.
Oh, yeah. Explain the Dirty 30 to people.
Now, Dirty 30 is where, after the war, we had too many people, and they wanted to cut us down. So even though guys just got out of training stuff, they picked 30 guys to go out to the fleet, be divers, EOD and stuff like that, and after 2 years they could come back or whatever, and it was just sucked. It was one of the low points, I think, of the teams. Imagine you just made it through BUDS or UDT training, whatever they called it back then. It might have been BUDS, and next thing you know, you're going to dive school or somewhere. Anyway, I went over to, and I was really pissed. I went over to BUDS as an instructor. Land warfare was the third phase and all that shit, but they still had LD&N program going on then, which is where gotten his action, and some other guys did. And I wanted to stay there and still do the LD&N, but I figured, I don't know, I just was one selected to go to BUDS.
Yeah.
Then when I got done with BUDS, I went back to Team 1.
How long were you a BUDS instructor for?
It's 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you go back to Team 1. I was there again for about 7 years and took about 3 or 4 platoons. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And,
when you see BUDS now, because you still are in the community, is there any major difference that you notice between what you went through and what you see now?
A lot more land warfare now.
Yeah.
I think the kids get trained better. There's so much more to learn.
Yeah.
I don't know, half our class probably would have flunked just academically with what the guys got to know now, I swear to God. We were frogmen. It was, wasn't that hard. But now with all the comm and everything those guys go through.
Are they teaching that stuff in BUDS? They teach comm in BUDS?
They teach some of it, yeah, not all of it, but some of it. And a lot of IEDs when they go out to San Clemente and stuff, I guess they do. Maybe they don't. Maybe that's more in SQT. But yeah, they got to use radios and shit there in BUDS. But it's just it's a mixture between what we did in XQT and what was the Frogman. But I think the Frogman part of it, the UDT part of it, is kind of really slacked off. I think they do a few cursory parallel, perpendicular recons and stuff like that. But when I went through, we were in that fucking water so much. It was so cold. And everybody always says,
Did you wear wetsuits?
You earned your wetsuit. And it wasn't a full wetsuit. It was just the...
well, that's for sure. That was the same with me. We had the old wetsuits with beaver tails. And even when I went through, this is 1991, right?
Yeah.
And so it's not like you couldn't get a decent, good surfing wetsuit, because I surfed and I knew what a good wetsuit was. So they give me that shitty wetsuit with the beaver tail with the big zipper, a big loose open. It looked like a 1970s disco. There's so much water going through that thing. It was almost not worth wearing.
Well, our first swim was in UDTs and no fins or nothing. You earned your fins.
Oh yeah, wetsuit appreciation.
Yeah.
They had they called it wetsuit appreciation,
and then
fin appreciation.
Also to get your fins too, and then we got our fins, and we still did a couple swims without the wetsuit. Then we got our wetsuit, and I mean it was like Jesus Christ,
Yeah.
Everybody always says, "Yeah, you don't mind cold water, do you?" And I says, "I've hated cold water all my life. It's just part of our job, and it's what you do." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, you only get wet once.
Yeah.
That's what I like. You know what? You're gonna get wet. You're just gonna get wet one time, and then it doesn't matter anymore.
Yeah.
But and there's certain things that I don't think have changed. Like, there's always been a 5.5 nautical mile swim.
Yeah.
Right. That I don't think that's gotten any shorter. I don't think that just is what it is.
A lot of the standards have stayed the same physically.
Yep.
And it fluctuates a little bit, I think, about who's the director over BUDS and how many times they roll people back and everything. Back in the day, I mean, if a guy got dropped or something, he was gone.
Done.
You never saw him again.
Yeah.
He was out of there. There wasn't come back later. Maybe they did after a couple of years or something. Like we had a guy in our class named and he had been in class 37, I think, and he had broke his hip. And then he was in my class and he made it. You know what I mean? We called him really got hypothermia bad. Good man, though.
There was a guy in my class that had rolled back. It's Jeff Higgs, as a matter of fact, who's a jiu-jitsu guy, but he had hypothermia. They dropped him for hypothermia, and he wouldn't. So they told him he's out. They're like, "You're done. Hey man, listen, you're a great guy, but you can't be in the program anymore because you just get hypothermia too easy." And he's like, "No, I'm not leaving." And they gave him his dungarees back, which is like the regular Navy thing that you wear. And he showed up with the class on Monday with his dungarees on, just PTing with the class in the compound. And they looked at him and they're like, "All right, we'll give this bastard another shot at the title." And yeah, he's a hard dude, and he made it through.
But hypothermia is a lot like heat exhaustion when you get it the heat thing.
Yeah,
that'll come back and bite you. It really does. I mean, I swear to God.
Hypothermia is like that too.
Yeah, if you get a real bad case of it, because
I knew it was like that with heat exhaustion, but I didn't know it was like that with hypothermia.
I think it is. I mean, maybe I'm wrong.
Yeah, I'm
just. Yeah, that's what I heard, so I don't know.
Well, I'm lucky because I've always been pretty well marbled in terms of insulation. There's those really skinny, lean dudes that
I always
freeze.
found out if you swim as hard as you can, you usually stay warm anyway.
That's a good point.
I don't like treading water in cold water, but like that swimmer line I was telling you about, that was painful. God almighty, that was cold. And I told you, when we first got to BUDS, they had us go down to 401 and gave us the talk, the guy lefty and righty won't be there. It's easier to pass a marshmallow through the keyhole of a needle than make it through, and we're all going, yeah, whatever. And so they marched us all back in front of the bay. I told you we're on the bay side, and then the guy was telling you about come walking out, and he kind of looked at us, and we're kind of like, yeah, how tough can this be and everything. And he said, about face, forward march. And marched us all with our dress blues right in the water.
Yep.
So you got your flaps sticking out like this, all the white hats floating, and the officers hat, and kind of looked at each other and went, "God damn, this may not be that easy." And it went downhill from there,
That sucks. Get ruining your uniform.
Our dress blues, dude.
Yeah, that sucks. That's typical. So you got done with being a BUDS instructor. You went back and you did a bunch. How many platoons did you do?
I think I did overall 9.
Damn.
Yeah, that's not that many, but I mean, it was good.
Actually, that is a lot. For anyone that's listening, doing 9 platoons is a lot because that's 9 platoons with workups. Yeah, that's like 20 years worth of work right there.